If you're actively seeking ways to build your mental toughness, navigate life transitions with grace, or simply find inspiration to keep moving forward, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Art of Beautiful Thinking podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Beautiful Thinking with myself, Kat, and Yvette, my co-host. Today we are going to be talking about navigating toxic parents.
Fun.
Another completely uncomplicated and easy to talk about subject.
Yeah, exactly. But it is complicated, isn't it? It's so
Very
complicated.
much.
And why is it complicated? Because society says that, I know that I was raised with the whole concept of your parents are always right. You've got to be there for your parents, as they get older, you've got to make sure you support them, all those types of things. And they always do the, blood is thicker than, what's that thing? Like
Water. Blood is thicker.
water. Yeah, blood's thicker than water. That's the one. And it's all just a load of freaking rubbish, because I would say that I used to, when I was younger, I used to think, you're raised to believe that a toxic family environment is not normal, and a loving relationship family environment is normal. And I would actually say that very few people actually come from a very loving family environment.
I would say normal is a setting on a washing machine. You know what I mean? Like,
That's so true.
how many shades of normal are there? Like, what is normal? Because what is normal to me,
exactly,
and the way I run my fam, or the way our fam runs our fam, and the way I was brought up as opposed to, how you guys are, is probably totally different. And
it is.
I mean, there's 50
like you may
ways.
have toxic parents or a toxic parent.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, gosh.
And what is the definition? What is the definition of a toxic parent?
Well, that's a good
Let's
question.
really challenge things. Let's see if we can get cancelled today. Come on.
Yeah, come on, guys, tell us. What's your definition of a toxic parent? Yeah, I know what my definition of a toxic parent is. Someone who basically lies to you all the time, an alcoholic as well. So I can only go by my own experience, alcoholism, no compassion for you, no empathy. When you're down, they kick you even harder. And they're not there, that they've never done anything to inspire you to be a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
It's always been about keeping you small.
Yeah.
And it's horrendous.
Totally the opposite of what you hope a parent will do, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I know as a child, and even now as an adult, when I think of my upbringing, all I have actually really wanted was to have a loving family home life.
Yeah.
But I didn't have that. And I know for me that provided me with, who I am today. Like, I'm extremely independent.
Yep.
I'm very strong-willed, very strong-minded.
Yeah.
I don't tolerate bullying, things like that. And that all came from being raised in a really, really abusive domestic violence family upbringing.
Yeah, I'm the same.
And watching as a child, there's not a lot you can do.
No,
except sit back and just go and be, in shock with how the interactions are happening within the family. And it's one of those things that you go, but I should be able to come home from school or what have you and feel safe.
Yeah.
Not come home and go, I have to actually put on all of my armor.
Yeah.
And
to survive the night.
Be really mindful and get defensive and constantly be in defensive mode, because I don't know what to expect when I walk through the front door.
That's horrendous.
It's a horrendous way to be raised as a child. And then becoming an adult, you leave home and you become an adult and those people are still in your life.
Yeah.
And
you've got a choice. Torn. You're so torn because you're trying to become an adult and go, well, I actually don't want to be anything like them. Because I mean, I've seen this in my work. People either go, they sort of go one of two ways usually. They either go, right, I'm never going to be like that, and try and go completely the opposite way. or they just fall into being that way because they don't even examine it and go, is this normal? They just go,
Yeah,
oh, this is
correct.
how it
So it's
is.
the cycle, isn't it? It's the cycle of behaviour.
Yeah.
But I know again when I left, like my father ended up committing suicide when I was about 19, and and my mother was still around, and I was still trying to be there for her and help her through that
Yeah.
trauma, and
Yeah.
always thinking that my mum's trauma was my dad,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
realizing that my mum was also her own trauma
Yeah. Yeah.
and causing her own trauma. And she's like, unfortunately, she's someone who is a compulsive liar. She also became an alcoholic because of
Yeah.
the environment at home.
Yeah.
Um, and it got to a point where I kind of went, I can't be around her because it was just not too much to handle, but she was constantly causing suffering and grief.
Mm.
And in my head, I was kind of going, but Dad's gone now. You don't need to
Yeah.
keep
No.
reliving this, keep being this person. He's gone. Um, and he's been, like, if I think 19, so he's been gone for 37 years.
Yeah. She's still
And,
stuck. Mm.
she'd only, when he had passed, she'd been with him for about 25 years thereabout. So you kind of
Yeah.
go, he's been gone longer than you were
Then
married
you were
to him.
together. So there's
Um,
obviously patterns and
yeah.
behaviors there that she had for whatever reason. Has she tried to seek help?
No, that's the thing.
No.
Not at all. And every time I would sort of, provide recommendations to sort of say, go see a counselor, go do this. Oh no, because that that age group,
Yeah.
you didn't talk about these things publicly.
No, no.
You don't go
No
and say, because
shame.
back then we've spoken about this before.
Mm.
Um, the police never used to get involved in domestic violence. Domestic violence wasn't spoken about.
No.
And even alcoholism wasn't
Just a
spoken
terrible
about.
stigma. You just need
There
to
was
learn
all
to
the
live with
stigma
it.
around it. So you just did not. So you just put on a pretend face that everything was perfect at
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
And so she continues to play that everything is perfect, but she's actually quite a piece of work. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
and
really sad. I mean, and
it
I know that
is.
you speak about that from a place of compassion
Mm.
because you're not judging her for it, but at the same time, you've also got to say to yourself, well, how much of my own mental health can I spend on this
Yeah.
situation? And this is the thing that you were talking about before, this whole honor thy mother and father thing that we were
Mm,
all raised with in Generation
mm,
X. Well, you
mm.
just got and latchkey kids and
Yeah, correct.
no
Yeah.
one gave a shit, really. We
No.
just had to, I mean, I think I've seen a meme that says, if the world is ending, ask Generation X because they've already dealt with it all. So they know how to
Yeah.
sort shit
Yeah.
out because that's what we had to do. But
Exactly.
there is that part of you that wants, and there's always that little child that lives inside us all that secretly hopes that, you know, I'm going to get along really well with my mum and my dad because I
Yeah,
just want to be
and
loved.
and you really want that, and you absolutely want to have that loving family
Yep.
relationship, and I would absolutely adore to have that, but I know it's not possible. And
Yeah.
it took a while. Like for me, funny enough, I think I was in my late 20s, and I did go off and seek counselling about it,
Right.
because a whole heap of because they say that when you've come from a traumatic childhood, and especially if you're born into it and you don't know any different,
Don't know.
as an adult, that's when it really starts hitting you
It
as
does.
to how,
Yeah.
especially, I've got a very loving relationship with my husband,
Yeah.
and having that relationship and being able to look back and go, this is what I was after
Yeah.
as a
That's
child.
right.
Um, but that environment also allows me to heal, which means all of a sudden all this stuff starts coming up. And
That's where it
so,
plays out in your
yeah,
relationships. That's where
correct.
it
And
comes
so
out.
I
Yeah.
ended up seeking counseling for that.
Mm.
And I remember the counselor saying to me, because I was speaking about, my father had already passed at this point, and speaking about my mum's behaviour and how she is, and how, yes, I really felt obliged to have to help her and get her through it. And then she said to me, look, just because she's your mother, she doesn't have to be your best friend.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't actually have to like her as a person.
Yeah,
And
having
that
permission to
kind
do
of,
that. Amazing.
and that hit me like a four bitter in the face. I was went,
Oh,
because but in me, it was like, she's my mum. I have to like her,
yeah,
I have
yeah.
to. And I really struggled with that, because she
Yep.
was, how she was treating people around her was totally against how, like we talk about value
Yeah, your
systems and things like
beliefs.
that. It was totally
Mm.
against how I treat people. And I was going, and if she wasn't my mother, she actually wouldn't be in my life. She wouldn't be the type of person that I would seek out as a friend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had
Um,
this thought process as well about lots of members of my family similarly.
yeah.
Similarly, yeah,
And
yeah,
so when
and
she said that to me, when the counsellor said that to me, I was like, oh my God. And that just, it shook me. And I went away going, yeah, she doesn't have to be my friend. I don't have to like her.
freeing. It's so
And
freeing, isn't it?
but then it became the what do I do with this? What do I
How do I
do with
make that
this
look now?
information?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's healthy? And then the whole guilt comes in. So what's healthy? So how can I do this? And how can I make this so that I'm still being a good daughter? Because that's what we
Yeah.
kind of put pressure on ourselves to be. And the fact of the matter is that there are some parents out there that don't have the capacity to love you or to be a
Yeah,
good parent. They don't have the
exactly.
capacity to do that. In the same way that, I always think of it about my dad, who is a horrendous pathological gambling addict, which has dominated his life and made him do some terrible things. And apart from all the other mental health stuff he's got going on that he wouldn't admit to anyway. In fact, he lacks the capacity to have the self-awareness to look at that stuff. And it
Yeah,
took
and
me a long
my
time
mum's the
to
same. My
realize
mum's
that.
exactly the same. Yeah.
So it's like asking someone who is in a wheelchair to please get up and walk when they have a spinal injury. They can't do it. And then getting disappointed that they can't get up and do that. And then being angry about the fact that they can't get up and do that because
Yeah,
they can't.
they
They
can't.
can't.
Yeah.
It's just
And I
something.
mean, the thing about it is you look at it and you go, like, I have very little to do with my mum now, and that has been an informed decision on my part. It's been about setting boundaries. I kind of went about setting boundaries. The first thing I tried to do was to assist her with getting help. But then, she wouldn't follow through. So you look at it and you go, well, if you go back to that society thing of trying to be there for your parent and help your parent out,
Yep.
but you can only help someone as far as they're willing to help themselves. And if they're not willing to help themselves, there's nothing you can actually do to help them.
No.
And that was the realization that I came to, was like, there's nothing else I can do. I was trying to be the good daughter. I was trying to help her through life. I would, you know, advise her on different things and be there for the take her out to lunch or try to build that relationship. And it was just like, it was always one-sided.
That's right.
Um, so I just kind of went, you've got to just start stepping back. And as I said, after
Yeah.
that realization of well, you wouldn't choose if she was someone that you met that you didn't know, um, and you got to know a bit, you probably wouldn't continue that relationship because of the type of individual they are. So
Yeah.
why are you doing that just because she's your mother? And so then I started setting up the boundaries and being
Yeah.
very clear with her about how, how our relationship was going to be moving forward. Um, and in her mind, that's not on, because you are my daughter and you
You
will do
owe
as I'll
her.
tell you to do. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, no, it's not. And same similar thing that you were talking about earlier on, where behind the scenes she would go and find advocates for herself, like other family members,
Like
or
flying monkeys.
yeah, yeah. And then bad mouthing, and she plays favorites and all that type of thing as well. And you just kind of
Yeah.
go, I don't have the energy for that. Now I'm in my
Smart.
50s and I'm like, hello, woman, when are you going to grow up?
Do what you want.
When are
Yeah,
you
yeah,
going to
yeah.
grow up?
You get to that stage when you get to 50, you're like, whatever. Like
Yeah,
when you're young, though, when you're young and you're trying to find your feet, particularly I think even it starts maybe in your 40s, doesn't it? Where you just start thinking to yourself, I've got too much on my plate to put up with this shit. I can't be the person that you lean on all the time. I can't be that. I can't have this relationship with you because it just sucks the life out of me. And that again is, people will be like, oh, you're so selfish because you're not supporting your mother, and your mother will say that, I'm sure, but you're being self-full. You're recognizing what your limits are and
yeah,
saying,
exactly,
I
exactly. And
also,
I look at it as sorry, not perseverance, protecting yourself ultimately, because
yeah,
as you said, if you're there all the time, it starts to pull you down, and um, and you start to question yourself with things. It's all of that self-doubt,
yeah,
negativity brings out the worst in people. And you just got to, for your own preservation,
that's right.
that's the word I was looking for. You need to actually go, I need to take a step back. And whether that is you keep them at arm's length and you only interact with them occasionally, or you choose to cut all ties, that's entirely up to you. with how you choose to do about.
Yeah.
But I would recommend that, you get some counselling on
Yeah,
it,
definitely.
and you do some soul searching yourself about the relationship and the type of relationship you want. And if you
Yep.
believe it can actually be resolved and fixed
Yeah.
because you're both willing to work on yourselves, then you do that. But if it's only one-sided, then you can't, there's nothing you can do for them. And that then means if that means for you to have to walk away, then you walk away. You
Yeah.
can't stay in that. You can't try
Yeah.
and keep
And,
it going.
sometimes, and this is really interesting because working in,
Sorry, I just wanted to add, and
oh,
that
sorry.
doesn't mean I don't love my mother.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
absolutely love her for being my mum, and
Yeah.
and she brought me into this world. My parents raised me, but that was also their responsibility and their decision, and that doesn't land on me, you
That's
know?
right. And
So
they didn't do a real good job. They really put you through the ringer.
they
They
did.
didn't
They
protect you.
did.
They didn't do the things that they were supposed to do as a parent.
No,
A lot of
that's
people get
exactly
it
right.
wrong in
Yeah,
varying degrees, and it really causes, this is a huge one. I mean, it's really interesting, like in the spaces that I've worked, a lot of the time, what we'll say to people is, particularly working with youth, it's okay. You didn't win the parent lotto. That's why you are in the place where you're at today. So it's okay for you to take a step back and go, I can't fix my parent. I'm going to just work on myself. I'm going to do healing for me. This is how we mend, you know, multi-generational trauma.
exactly. That's exactly right. And I know, again, if I look at the situation, because I love helping people, I love inspiring people and assisting people to connect to their authentic selves and become the better version of themselves. And it's not the better, a different person, it's who you truly are on the inside and allowing that to shine through. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so, because I'm like that naturally as a person, that's how I interact with people. That's exactly what I was trying to do with my mum as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
really just wanted to help her shine and help her,
Yeah.
fall in love with life again. She had, and I can understand both my parents had very difficult upbringings. So you can understand where their behavior came from,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it doesn't actually justify
The treatment
why
of,
they behave that way.
yeah.
You can understand it and
Yeah.
you can empathize with it, but you chose to continue.
And that's really wise. That's really wise. And it's heartbreaking because if you're working with someone that you're coaching who, isn't making progress, it's okay. You can take a step back and go, well, this is their journey. But
Yeah,
when it's your own mother, it's like, oh my God. And then it's really a bad place because you can start taking their stuff on
yeah.
that you can't fix.
Exactly.
And then
And
it
I
becomes weird.
and it wasn't that I was trying to fix her, I was just trying to point her in, like, go get some counselling done,
Yep.
go to AA to get
Yeah.
assistance with, your
I want you to be
alcoholism.
happy. I want you to
Yeah,
be happy. I love you and I
exactly,
want you to be happy. But
exactly.
that creates,
Having
yeah.
conversations with some of her friends, which were fully aware that she had these issues, but wouldn't actually talk to her about it. And I was like, "You guys need to step in and help her," you know? And then being used as "Oh, your daughter said this about you." It's like, "Oh my God."
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was doing everything of trying to point her in the right direction, but she wouldn't actually take the step down those pathways. And again,
No.
it goes back to because of the stigma associated with it.
Yeah.
So she was more concerned about what other people would think of her
Yeah.
than
That's very,
to
yeah, very good.
go and heal herself.
Yeah.
And then you go, but people are talking about you anyway because of the way that you're behaving when when you're drunk, and that you're a compulsive liar and all of this type of stuff. So
She's in that comfort zone. She's in the painful comfort zone. It's painful
yeah,
enough
and
that
it's
she
it's
hates
it's
it.
also the victim mentality. So she's very
Yeah.
used to being the victim. So you look at that and you go, again,
Mhm.
as a child in that, you've got a choice of going, do I want to be like that myself
Yeah.
and take on those traits because those behavioral patterns is what you've been
Yeah.
raised with?
That's the vibration. Mm.
Exactly. Or do you make a decision, a very clear decision, to break that cycle, as you said before, and go, I'm not going to take that path?
That's right.
And that was something that I did do. I made a very clear decision that I wasn't going to have a life like my parents.
Yeah. Which
Um,
is really brave, actually. Very,
well,
very brave.
to me, I looked at it and I went, why would I want to live that when there is, I believed that there was
So much
always
better.
something better.
Mm, mm.
And so I did everything to ensure my life wouldn't be
Yeah.
like that. And when I needed to heal, I went, okay, well, who do I need to go and speak to? So that's the other thing that I'd recommend, as I said, don't go and do the
Yeah.
things that you need to do to heal when you're in that situation, because by no means, I don't believe that when you're in pain, should you make the decisions about cutting a relationship. I think you can only do that once you've actually gone through your own healing and your own self-reflection and had some assistance yourself, and then to be able to go, how do I want to deal with this relationship
Yeah,
that's over
exactly.
here? Because when you make the decisions when you're in pain and hurting, making sure that you don't make any decisions about that relationship when you're in pain yourself, because you could end up making really bad
Yeah.
decisions because you're coming from a place of pain and trauma
Yeah.
yourself. So
Yeah, that's a big one.
um, if you're able to do your healing first, and through that healing then be able to move forward and go, well,
Process
okay,
it.
do I believe that I can keep navigating this relationship the way it is, and I've got enough around me to be able
Yeah.
to navigate that quite clearly,
Yep.
or do I need to actually cut ties and not have, have very limited
Yeah.
amount of time with them? Because I think once you've actually gone through a bit of self-healing, you're also able to not be too emotionally involved in it as well. It's almost like you can step back
Yeah.
and observe their behavior and go, well, um, I can still interact with them,
Yeah.
and I know not to react when they say certain things. But the funny thing with family, though, is they know how to push the buttons.
Yeah.
So it's, it's the thing of being, or do you only limit your time with them, only catch up with them on certain times? So
Manage it.
like,
Manage it when it suits you.
yeah,
That's right. Birthdays,
exactly.
weddings,
Exactly.
Christmas, have a lunch together. Just do the
Yeah.
bare minimum and
Yeah.
stay in touch. That's all you got to do.
Yeah. Exactly.
If as an adult you're finding that it's just another thing that is really draining you, that's all you got to do. You don't have to be. I mean, there's this whole weird expectation that we grew up with that families have to be really close, and you've got to love your brothers and sisters and your cousins and everyone. They all have to be your best friends in the whole
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Sometimes that just doesn't work because
No.
you've got people you're marrying into families that may have completely different values to you. You might be marrying the black sheep of the family that you get along brilliantly with, and the rest of the family is completely fucked. You
Exactly.
know,
Exactly.
let's just call
Yeah.
it how it is. Some people are painful. This is the thing. You got to find your tribe and
Yes.
just marry.
And I would also say, yeah, and I would also say with that, your family end up being the people that you choose to have in your life. So your really close friends, they
Yes,
become your family.
absolutely. I
Um,
agree with that
and
100%.
and if you are lucky enough to have blood family that you're close to, that is fabulous. That is
Fabulous.
absolutely
Even
fantastic and
better.
nurturing.
Yep.
But your friends are who you choose to have in your life.
Yeah, that's right. And
So
they become my family. They really
yeah,
do.
exactly.
And I mean, if everyone gets irritated by their parents and by their family at times, you live
It
with
happens.
people and you just think, oh God, that's completely normal. We're not talking about that. What we're
No.
talking about is toxic, abusive parents who, um, well, I mean, in my instance, my dad is a pathological gambler and a
Yeah.
pathological liar, because people that run all their money down poker machines and things, they do tend to lie to cover up their losses a lot.
Yeah.
Again, sometimes I think I'm so naive. I don't understand how that works because my brain doesn't work like that. I wouldn't go earning all my money and then chucking it in a machine, hoping to God that I was going to, double it. I'd be looking at my
Yeah.
losses and going, shit, this is a nightmare. I know once I went to Jupiter's Casino in Brisbane. I think I stuck $20 in a pokey because I'd never done it before. I won $240. I bought a round of drinks and that was it. Done. Thank you very much. Didn't have the remotest interest in putting
Yeah.
any more money through it. It was like, right, I've had my win. Odds say I'm not going to do that again. That's my money. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they do say that, any form of addiction, including gambling, alcoholism, is all a form of disease. It's interesting how we classify them as diseases. Um, and that people, when they have that addiction, they can't help themselves.
Yeah.
Um, and it's even more so if they don't bother trying to get help.
Well, I think pathological gambling is even harder to break than heroin.
Mm.
It's the most difficult addiction to bring to extinction.
There you go.
And I mean, it's really interesting when you study psychology, they talk about operant conditioning. When they put rats in a cage, and
Yeah.
the,
Yep.
the most powerful conditioning is when they stick a rat in a cage and they just give it a button, and at completely random intervals, when they press that button, food will drop out. And they've got no way of knowing. There's no pattern, there's no rhyme or reason. So that mouse or rat will just stand there banging that button all day long, hoping to God that food will fall out. And it will just make it that life's purpose. And that is exactly how poker machines work.
Isn't that fascinating? And the funny thing, like if I look at it, I mentioned before about being able to say, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Now, I know that all of the work that I've done on me, I did like all of the personal growth work and the self-development work, and even when I started meditating at such a young age, all of that was to be able to deal with that situation. And then the personal growth and the personal development was also about letting go of a lot of that past trauma and learning from it. So I probably wouldn't have done any of that if I had come from a really good environment. And the interesting, but what I'm saying is I love that field. And part of the reason why I love personal growth so much is because of how much it has actually assisted throughout my, being able to forgive, being able to let go, being able to be grateful for what I have, being able to see life for the beauty that it actually is, and the ability that we have to be able to express ourselves in life and things like that. I wouldn't have come, I may have come to that realization eventually, who knows? But what happened to me as a child and as a young adult, I was looking for answers, and I moved into that field to try and help me heal the pain and look for answers, and at the same time realize, setting the boundaries as we talk about and letting go, and realizing that I understand my parents came from trauma. I understand that they had their own toxic upbringings and things like that, and that made them who they were, but they didn't break the cycle. They continued the cycle. And it's really important that what is the single negative story that you actually keep telling yourself about over and over again?
Yeah. And I mean, it is a lie. It's a complete lie. Like, you can believe that you'll never change a certain aspect of yourself. The good news is that if you don't know where to start, turn inward. If you want to do the work, unbelievable results will follow.
Here at the Art of Beautiful Thinking, we've actually created a workbook called Your Authentic Life Blueprint. I pretty much created this based on all of the tools that have assisted me to level up from growing up in a domestic violence environment. I've condensed these tools into a workbook that actually guides you to understanding you and to bring joy into your life and to live life from that place. So what we will also do is guide you in creating your new belief by unlocking your limiting beliefs, identifying your self-sabotaging habits, and understanding your values and strengths so you can increase your self-confidence. We also assist you to define your unique purpose, and you get to set goals based on that, and then break those down from huge tasks into smaller, powerful steps so you can do something every single day towards living a life that is uniquely yours.
The Authentic Life Blueprint workbook is actually your comprehensive 12-week roadmap. And you can use it as a powerful self-study, or you can have it as a foundation for our entire coaching program. Don't waste any more time being miserable or suffering. It's not worth it.
You are in that cycle, is to learn to break it. And you learn to break it through going through that, all of that self-work, that inner work.
And find someone that can help you break it.
Yeah, and support you through it. Exactly right. Because it's not, yes, you'll do a lot on your own, but you at times do need someone to help guide you and to support you through that.
Support's so important, and a bit of validation is so important. It really empowers people. It's incredible the difference that you get when you go from, oh, I feel so guilty, I feel so weighed down, I mustn't do this, I mustn't do that. These are all the familial expectations I have, especially if, and this is really common too, you've got a sibling that didn't go through what you went through. Because quite often in these toxic family setups, you will have one child they're the scapegoat. That was me. I was the scapegoat because I was the convenient target. So my other siblings, when I've gone, oh no, actually, I think this is something to do with my dad, have gone, no, it's you. And then that reinforces that message as you're growing up. And then as you get older, you think, I don't dare buck the system because I'm the one at fault. You've got to shed that. That's a hard process. It's like you and I have discussed in the past where we've said, You look at your blueprint that you've been handed, because we all grow a blueprint of how to live, how to interact with other people, what relationships look like. That all comes from our family. And you can look at the blueprint and go, this is actually really dysfunctional. This doesn't work. So I'm going to chop these bits of blueprint out, because that is a room that goes to nowhere. Those stairs go up through the fire exit and make me fall off the roof. I'm getting rid of those. I know they don't work. Shit, this is what I've got left now. I've got to build it. And I don't actually have a certificate of being a draftsperson. I don't know how to design a building. How am I going to do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and that's the hard part. You can say, yeah, I don't think this is going to work. Okay, how am I going to make it so that it does work? How does that look?
Yeah, exactly. And it's and again, it's baby steps. You know, you've got to. I like to look at it like, and I don't know if I've mentioned this on another podcast episode. I may have, but I like to look at it like an onion. You know, and you have all these layers, and these layers are bits of baggage and stuff like that, beliefs that you've taken on, doubts, or everything that you're laid over the core of you. You know. And every time you do a bit of work on you, you're actually pulling one of those layers off.
Yes.
And as you get closer and closer to the core, they get tighter and tighter. And it's usually because they're really, really deep trauma,
sometimes
pain.
You don't even know you've got them until you get like a little
until
wake
you
up.
get there. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you know, and I also, I like to use the analogy of like every time you do work on yourself. So imagine yourself like a dirty glass of water, okay? And there's all the sediment down the bottom and it's a bit murky and muddy and things like that. And every time you do a bit of work on yourself, you're adding a bit of clear water in there. But every time you add that clear of water, the sediment from the bottom gets stirred up. So all the stuff, all the old stuff starts coming to the surface. And the idea is not to get caught in it and to allow it to go, just allow it to go. And then keep adding that water and keep adding that water. And before you know it, you've actually turned into a clear glass of water.
Clear glass of water, yeah.
But you've got to allow all that sediment to come up to the surface. Don't push it back down, because all you're doing when you're pushing it back down is putting it back into your cellular memory and things like that. You've got to let it go, let it go.
And it's quite a painful process. It's pretty.
It is, and that's the part that you need assistance with and work with. And it takes a while, you know, and I'm still working on it. Like I've been doing this now for
lifelong thing.
Gosh, 30 odd years. So it's
I think I'll be working on it until the day I die. I mean, even when we have conversations or when I get around people that I think, wow, they've done that so well. You know, everyone, you can learn something from everyone, actually.
Oh, you can.
I mean, I've met some people that I looked at and I thought, geez, you're a bit of an asshole. But actually, they do some things really well. And it's important to maintain that flexible mindset, which is, again, difficult. But like you say, if you get the support that can help you move through that, lifting that sediment when that stuff comes to the surface, because we've all got it, that's the key, isn't it?
We do. And it is, and that's the key. When you're able to start working on that, and as I said, forgiveness is massive, like absolutely massive, because, and it's not necessarily that you're forgiving the person for what they've done, like you're letting it go and forgetting about what they've done. It's actually about forgiveness from a point of view of being able to let it go from you.
Yeah. Forgive the situation.
So you can actually just move on, because if you don't forgive, you can't move on. You're still playing in that space and you're still allowing it to play out in your life, and it will be playing out in your life. So if the forgiveness comes from the point of view of being able to allow you to move on and to just have a better life.
Forgiving yourself, because I think this is the other thing that we do when we come from abusive families, because we're constantly told that we're the problem. And to some extent, it doesn't matter how evolved and how much personal growth you do. When you are told the same thing over and over and over, a little part of your brain will always believe that.
Oh, yeah, the little monkey mind. Yeah, the monkey mind just...
Yeah. So, you know, forgiving yourself and not blaming yourself and saying, well, you know, I grew up in that environment. I didn't have a choice. It's okay. It's okay. I didn't have the skills because I was a kid.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And now you're learning the skills and you're developing the skills, and it's through that learning and development that you're able to make those improvements and make really good informed decisions about what you want in your life and what you don't want in your life and what you're willing to.
In a calm place where you...
exactly. So coming from that center, coming from that calmness, rather than coming from a place of angst. You know, it's really, really important to do that. And that's what's going to help you move on. And the other thing, as I said, gratitude. Because it's really, it's really important. Like for my parents, I'm able to be grateful to them for bringing me into this life. I'm able to be grateful for them for putting a roof over my head, for putting food on the table, because from the outside looking in, we had a pretty good life.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Um,
Same
but
for
when you actually came in behind closed doors,
mm,
yeah, it was a
pretty
different
bad.
story.
Yeah, and
And
that's the same with me. My dad was a very, very successful businessman.
yeah,
He lived in a beautiful house. He had a lot of money. And, he would bang on about, oh, I've given him money, I've done this, I've done that. No time was given, no emotional support because he didn't have the capacity to do that stuff,
yeah.
you know? And
And so it doesn't matter, sometimes it can be you're raised in poverty, and other times you are in a wealthy home environment. You may have the money, but you're still in a really toxic environment. And it just none of that really matters.
no,
What matters is how you come through it and how you handle it. So I think it is really important, like I said, that being grateful for what you did get from it. And sometimes it can be grateful for the lessons that you learnt from that, because you know that yes, you may have learnt it in another situation, but you'll never know because you haven't been in that situation. But that, that domestic violence or the trauma or the toxic parent or what have you has taught you something. And be grateful for that lesson, for what they've taught you, and walk
yeah.
away with that.
And I mean, a lot of
Because
times too, that you see people that have been raised in those kinds of environments, and I'm talking about things I've seen as well, where I've worked with some really wonderful young ladies who have then gone into the same kind of relationships because it feels like home.
yeah,
That's the other
yeah,
disadvantage. So
yeah,
that is why it is so important to unpack this stuff and to try and look,
totally.
because otherwise, you like we said, you may be that person who goes, oh, actually, no, I don't want to live my life like this. This is awful. But then you need someone to help you learn how to change it and how to
Yeah,
do
exactly
the
right. Break the
skills.
patterns.
Or you
Yeah,
might be that person that doesn't realize that it's a terrible pattern and moves into that next relationship, which is where these things play out, where the same toxicity occurs. It feels like home. It's a trauma bonding experience because you haven't unpacked that, you haven't processed it, and you're still going through it. And it's really interesting because I've seen abusive fathers who've been abusive to their wives and abusive to, like, physically use domestic violence on their partners, and then um, their children, their daughters, have seen this behavior and they've been verbally abusive to the daughters. They may not have laid a hand on them, but it's still domestic violence.
yep, yep.
And these daughters have then grown up
Emotional abuse.
and gone, yeah, and gone and picked partners exactly the same.
Yeah,
Exactly the same. And
yeah,
I've seen the fathers when the daughter has turned around and gone, oh my God, I'm actually in the same domestic violence relationship that my mother had with my father. And the father's turned around and blamed the daughter. I've seen that too.
yeah. Oh,
Oh, you're
yeah,
carrying on. You're just like your mother. Always
yeah.
want more
Exactly.
than the poor bastard.
Yes. And it does happen. That absolutely does happen. And it's funny
Right.
because I did a personal development session with Dr. DeMartini. Jeff and I both did it because Jeff's background similar, domestic violence upbringing, all that type of stuff. And we both went to this DeMartini thing. And oh gosh, I'm probably going back about 20 years ago now.
Wow.
And I can't even remember what the event was called, but what we were doing at this, it was a whole intensive weekend, and what we were doing was, it was basically about forgiving the past,
Yeah.
and if you did come from
Yep.
a really bad environment, it was really going into that space and
Yeah.
seeing what you learnt from it, but also really forgiving from a
Yeah.
place of compassion and empathy and
Yep.
things like that.
So it doesn't
And I'll never
hurt
forget him
you
saying
anymore. Yeah.
part of the process was to sort of say, you know, talk about, like, write down. So you didn't have to talk out loud. Write down whether you're in a physical abusive environment or whatever, and what that felt like. Blah blah blah. So you're writing
Yeah.
that down, and then it became, where have you done this to someone?
Ah, that's interesting, isn't
And
it?
it was like, no, I have never. Sorry, not never. Twice I've hit someone, and that was because I was defending myself.
Yeah. Yep.
And it was like, and speak about the situation, but otherwise I would never just hit someone for the sake of
Oh
hitting
God,
them.
no.
That's just
Don't lay
that's
hands on
just not
anyone
something
for
that
that.
I would do, because again, the environment that I came from, it was like, no way in the world, violence to me is horrendous. And then
Yeah.
he said, okay, so he's walking around, and he got to me and he goes, okay, Yvette, so I see that you've got only two situations here, and you've mentioned that you would never ever hit anybody, but whenever you use words,
Mm.
that feel like, have you ever had someone say something to you that felt like a punch in the gut? Even though they didn't physically hit you,
Mm.
the words were just as
Yeah.
violent,
And those
just as
things stay, I think they stay longer than a physical.
they do.
Yeah, yeah,
And because bruises go. It's the emotional stuff that we hold on to.
yeah,
And so that was like, "Oh my God, when have I used words?"
yeah.
And then it was
I've done
like,
a
well,
heap. I'm
you know?
absolutely guilty in the past. I've
Yeah.
absolutely done it. I probably still do.
Absolutely, and
Yeah,
so had I. And even if I look at my home environment when I was growing up, I never used physical violence, but I would go back with words.
yeah, yeah, same. But then
And
sometimes, but you know what? In all fairness, as a child, what else did you have?
exactly, I didn't
Mm,
have anything else.
yeah,
But it's interesting where you go, "Whoa, okay, so you've
mm,
got to recognize that that was part of the cycle, and now
yeah,
you need to break that as well," because people don't think it's that. Like, if I look at it and I go, "Well, I walked away from a physically violent upbringing."
yeah,
That was also emotionally abusive as well, but there was a lot of physical
yeah,
violence. Then you walk out and you go, okay, I'm never going to lay a hand on anybody. I would never lay a hand on a child or anything like that. But you're not thinking about, well, what about the words that you're speaking?
yeah,
How are you interacting with people?
yep.
Do you get your back up easily and
Mm.
get really defensive and throw,
We
like
definitely
arrows
used
at
to.
people?
I definitely used to. I think that was
Yeah,
certainly and I mean that comes out as an overly developed hyper-vigilant system that you get when you're in that sort of environment because
it is.
that's certainly how I used to be. I've had to work really
Yeah,
hard on not doing that so much. But yeah, it comes from who's going to throw the first punch? That's an abusive
exactly.
system, isn't it? That's an abusive
Yeah,
system. You're hyper-vigilant. If you get in first, it
yeah,
puts you in a position of power. And
yeah.
yeah, it's gross.
It is
I
gross.
say that a
And
lot,
so
don't I?
that's
It's gross.
that's part of, as you said, that's part of that whole unpacking it and letting it go. And so we went through this whole personal development
Yeah.
course to start to unpack. And by the time we finished, I had such it was just such a relief that had come off
Oh
my
yeah.
shoulders, and such
Yep.
forgiveness
Yep.
for my father and for how, for his role in that family dynamic.
Really let it go.
And
You really
and
processed it.
and I was really able to let it go, and Jeff was the same. He was really able to let his go as well, and it was just, and I mean, as I said, intensive, lots of tears,
Yeah.
it was,
Yeah.
there was probably about 50 people in the room, and
Oh shit.
it was intensive, but oh my God. And that's what I say, do the stuff that you need to do to help you move through this shit and
Yeah.
let it
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
And we've done some pretty intensive work on ourselves to
Because
let
it
go of
does
this
weigh
stuff.
you down. It does weigh you
It
down, and
does.
you don't
It
realize that
does.
you're carrying it. It's that's so powerful that you did that. Far out. That's actually really awesome. Yeah. Really, really powerful. I've
So
done
that's
some
what I would
similar
recommend to
with
people.
Tony
Do
Robbins.
what you need to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
to let it go.
Yeah.
Um, and at the same time, if your parents are still alive, or sibling, or whatever it is that you've got the issue with, set those boundaries. Really set those boundaries. It's
Yeah.
absolutely important to do that.
Yep.
Um, because you have your own life to lead
And
now.
don't feel guilty. Like, if you go no contact with somebody in your family for your own mental health, it's not an act of cruelty.
No,
You're not doing that as something that is, and if you're, and a lot of time in, let's bring the term out, enmeshment, enmeshed families, there are lots of different ways that enmeshed families will use gaslighting and guilt tripping, and there's all these familial expectations, and you've got to do this, you've got to do that. So when you set a boundary, a toxic parent will say to you, this really hurts me. You're doing the wrong thing. You're really letting me down. You're really disappointing me. How could you do this to me? I'm your mother. I'm your father. And your siblings might come in and go, my God, you've really upset her now. You've really upset them. You're breaking their heart. Okay, well,
they put the guilt on. They put the guilt on.
that's their
Yeah,
choice.
yeah,
Their choice.
exactly right.
You're also very upset because
Yeah,
it's not an easy move to go, well, actually, I'm going to take a step back. It's very hurtful to you as well, but you got to do it for what works for you. And then the only
exactly.
response to that is, well, I'm so sorry that you feel that way.
And I think if you're an adult that also has children, you
Yeah.
really don't want your kids to be around that
Not
at
at all.
all,
Not at all.
you know? Yeah.
It's such a dysfunctional dynamic in it. And again, you want to break that cycle. But then
Yeah.
again, do they have the right to know their grandparents as well?
I think
Probably.
they've got a right to know them, but I would kind of go, don't leave them with them by themselves. Make sure that you're around or your partner's around them.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly,
So
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's fair enough too. Again, it comes back to boundaries, but I think our whole generation has some sort of guilt around that. And family
Oh
enmeshment
yeah.
is
Yeah.
is a super, super powerful thing. Super powerful. I remember when I lost my daughter in stillbirth, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, I was still like unable to leave the house because it had only been a couple of months or maybe 8 weeks or so since I'd lost her. And they came around to the house and they had a massive go at myself and my husband because we weren't being considerate enough of their mother who had lost their first grandchild.
Well, yeah.
I said, "Thanks for coming, but you can go now. We don't really want to hear this stuff. We're right in the middle of our own terrible,
Yeah, you're
terrible,
dealing your own grief. I mean, come on.
I'm
Yeah,
still
absolutely.
yeah, I'm still recovering and I'm barely able to move. I'm so ill and weak. And unfortunately, whilst I would love to have space for another person in my grieving, I don't right
I
now."
don't. Yeah, exactly
I
right.
said I
Exactly
probably
right.
wasn't as polite as that.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's
Yeah,
where
so
I
there is, I mean, exactly, and that's the thing, there's when people don't sort the help that they need, that's pretty much what you get, and you really wanna make sure that you do break that cycle, you do set boundaries, understand that you are deserving of having a loving and an absolutely loving life, and I would also say you are deserving of love, because
absolutely.
a lot of the times when we come out of those types of environments, we don't feel that we are deserving to be loved,
No.
and you absolutely are.
And
You abs
real love, not just sexual intimacy or,
Correct.
encounters. And the other thing, of course, you don't have to be, particularly I say this for females, if you've come from a domestic violence family where you've watched, say, for example, your mother serve and wait on your father,
Yeah.
you don't have to do that. You don't
No,
have to do that. You can be an equal relationship where your input is valued and treasured and you are seen
exactly.
as a cherished person who is loved
Yeah.
and you've got a voice.
You do have a voice, absolutely. So, and I would also say that normally the first thing you've got to do is to start having a better relationship with yourself.
Again, it always
And
comes back to that.
it does, it all comes back to how you basically interact with yourself and how you talk to yourself, and because how you're being internally is also how you are being externally. And if you're able to really start to be compassionate about you
Yep.
and develop, like I like to say to people, develop a friendship with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, start to interact with you like you would when you were meeting a new person for the first
Mm.
time, and
Yep.
you like the person and you're getting to know them. Do the same thing. Start to learn about you, start to understand how you tick and I mean, you may know what you like on the surface, but really get to know you and develop a good
Explore.
friendship and become your own best friend.
Yeah, explore that inner world and the voice that gets squashed in you by, overbearing parents or a
Mm,
toxic family structure, whatever. That voice is usually very quiet and you can't really
yes,
hear it over the yammering of all the other shit that you've been told. So
exactly.
that is getting to know you. That little quiet voice that is you, you have to sit and listen for it at first. And over time, as you are able to listen to it more, it does become louder.
It
Mm.
does. It does. And let it know, like I think mirror work is a really powerful thing for that,
I'm
is
so
being able to
keen
look at
to
yourself.
do a session on mirror work. I'm so keen because
Yeah,
I
we
haven't
will.
done
We
mirror work.
absolutely will. I think mirror
Right.
work is amazing. It's
Yeah.
just, and it can be quite confronting at first, but then after a while you start getting used to it. It's a simple tool, but such a powerful tool.
All of this is
So
quite
we will do a session on mirror work.
isn't it?
Absolutely.
Confronting is that's the hard part. It's really interesting when I started at uni to do psychology. I didn't complete the degree, but one of the things that came out was they said one of the reasons people don't finish or complete courses of treatment in therapy is because it's so confronting.
Hmm.
You can't cope with how confronting it is. It is
It
confronting.
is. It is.
Mm.
And working on you is extremely confronting because you've got to look at the good and the bad,
We've got blind spots.
and
Mm.
yeah, exactly right.
Yep.
And and understand you and understand why certain things, why you behaved in certain ways or why you're not willing to let go of things. And we speak about that cycle and the victim mentality and things like that.
Yep.
All of that creates a chemical reaction in the body,
Mm.
and you can actually get addicted to that chemical reaction in the body, which is why you sort that type of situation out. So again, like any addiction, you need to break it,
Yeah.
and you do that by changing that chemical reaction to a different chemical reaction that's more conducive, more loving,
Yep.
more honoring of who you actually are. And that
Yeah.
takes time.
And you will go through, I think, a period of, I guess it's changing the status quo in your life. You do. And a lot of people have sort of said to me, oh my God, when you start counseling or when you start changing or coaching, it does really upsets a lot of the power structures in your life.
Yes.
That's, you might start realizing that friend that you value a lot, that you think is really supportive and great, they actually are putting you down all the time. They're actually talking behind your back. They actually use you to dine out they want to talk to you because they love dining out on your stuff and laughing behind your back. That's horrible. Horrible to discover these things.
But that's also because, when you look at it, if you're still dealing, like you're in that early phase of, well, I'm working on myself, but you're still in that early phase, you will find that as you start understanding you more and starting to let go of certain behavioral patterns and things like that, that certain people will fall away out of your life.
Yeah.
And the reason why they'll fall away is because you were being a different person before.
You're not
And
vibrating.
that attracted a particular type of correct.
Mm.
And that attracted a particular type of individual to you. And so as you grow, you'll find that some people that are in your life will stay because they're still at that level, but a lot of people will fall away.
Yeah. Yep.
And at first that can be a little bit not just confronting, but upsetting, because you go, but why are they falling away? And it's because you're no longer being
scary
a trauma
Yeah.
patterned person.
Yeah. You don't sit
and you're attracting a different type of individual into your life.
Yeah.
Because you're being a different type of individual. And that's not to say that you are being dishonest to who you are, or you're no longer being the person. What it actually is you're starting to allow the real you to come through.
That's right.
Instead of trying to push that person down, you're allowing that person to shine through.
And that's change. And change is something that a lot of people are very afraid of, purely because it's hard work. It is hard work.
It is hard work. But I tell you, it's great.
It is.
It's hard work, but oh boy.
It's fantastic. It's like motivational
what you get from it.
Yeah, I did a really great motivational interviewing training once, and the guy said, imagine that, there's two cliffs. You're on this side in the jungle and it's getting dark. You've come out of a plane crash and you know that you have got to go across. You can see across the way. You've been told there's a villager trotting across this super shaky bridge, and they're going, we can give you safe passage across the bridge and you can stay in our village and we're going to give you food and water and protect you. You'll be right. And if you stay over this side of the bridge, the jungle's coming alive. It's night. You're probably not going to survive. Okay. So you're looking at, you're going to get eaten. You're looking at this shaky bridge and this villager going, it's okay, come across. We'll look after you. But you're absolutely shitting it, because you're going, well, I don't know this villager. And some of the people over here, they don't want to come with me, and they're my friends and they might get eaten. But what do I do? What do I do? And that's kind of the dilemma of this, exactly the same thing. If you take the plunge and you go across, the village might be amazing and it might be the gateway for the next thing.
Exactly right.
In the moment, do I get eaten, or do I trust it, or what do I do?
Exactly. And it is about having faith and taking that step.
Having faith, yeah.
Even though you don't know what the outcome's going to look like.
Yeah. Reach out in faith and the universe will catch you, apparently.
Well, apparently, I reckon it does.
It does.
I reckon it does. Yeah. So again, thanks, guys. On that note, I again hope you really got something out of today's session, today's episode. If there's any questions that you may have, or if you would like us to delve deeper into a certain topic that we may have raised in today's session, please let us know, communicate down below, or then again, join us on our Facebook community. We'd love to talk to you there and share your stories.
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
Thanks for joining us. Over to you, Kat.
See you guys. Thank you for coming and joining us, and we'll speak to you probably next week.
Yeah, we will. Ciao. We'd like to say a huge thank you to our incredible audience for your continued support. Our mission is to ignite your spark, empowering you to be a beacon of light for others. We'd love to hear from you. So if you've got any questions that you would like answered in future episodes, or just want to share some insights, connect with us on our Facebook community page. If you're looking for additional resources, go to our website. You'll find the link below. And remember, the absolute best way to help us grow is to share this episode with your friends and family and to subscribe to the Art of Beautiful Thinking podcast. So until next time, think beautifully and live brilliantly.